This is where the word ball gets linked to the actual sensed object, and the sound of a bounce connects to the action of bouncing.
You got it. You're building bridges between your senses and these abstract symbols. You're starting to encode relational meaning.
Okay, sense it, then symbolize it.
Yeah.
That's the third stage.
And only after those first two stages are sort of established do you reach Tsunsha. That's abstract reasoning.
So forming the higher level concepts.
Yeah, like understanding gravity after seeing the ball fall repeatedly, or grasping the concept of play after lots of interactions with the ball, maybe other people. It's building abstraction, but on top of that sensory grounding and those symbolic connections.
So it's a clear progression. You sense it, then you symbolize it, and then you can think abstractly about it. It's layered.
Right. And the essay points out this developmental path aligns really nicely with thinkers like Vygotsky, who stressed the social and cultural roots of cognitive development.
Interesting. And even philosophical ideas, like Lenin's point about knowledge starting with sensation and moving toward abstraction.
And apparently, modern neurocognitive studies, work by researchers like Clark and Barcelou mentioned in the essay, also lend support to this more embodied view of cognition.
So this whole stepwise construction, moving from grounded experience through symbolic representation up to abstraction, this is what the essay argues builds semantic intelligence.
Semantic intelligence, meaning deep, layered understanding.
Exactly. And their core claim, the real kicker, is that current AI systems fundamentally miss this crucial foundation. They kind of operate at the abstract or symbolic level of language and data patterns.
But without the foundational sensoromotor grounding that gives those symbols real meaning rooted in, well, reality.
Precisely. Which brings us to what the essay calls the core crisis in AI, why it isn't truly thinking in the human sense, even though it's so impressive.
Right, because the argument is that current AI architecture is built primarily on, predictive processing.
Yeah, predictive processing. It's incredibly sophisticated at predicting the next word in a sequence, or the next pixel in an image, the next line of code. It's pattern matching on a massive scale.
So it's like having seen almost every conversation ever recorded and getting really good at guessing how people finish sentences.
But without actually knowing what any of the words truly refer to in the real world.
Yeah, that's the sharp contrast the essay highlights. It says, AI handles data. Humans handle meaning.
Ooh, that's a good line. AI processes these vast collections of symbols, which is data. But humans, we don't just process symbols. We connect them to our lived experience, our emotions, our culture.
As the essay puts it, AI maps language statistically. Humans inhabit it semantically. We live within the meaning of language because it's tied to our being in the world.
Exactly. So simple human things, like understanding the sort of sad feeling of a minor chord in music.
Or grasping the layered meaning in a metaphor, like the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Right. These aren't just about analyzing data patterns. They require that embodied connection, linking the symbols, the notes, the words to physical sensations or emotional experience.
And that deep symbolic memory built up from life. The essay argues current AI systems focused on finding patterns in data using things like attention layers and token embeddings. They just lack this architecture.
They lack the architecture for grounded symbolic meaning. They lack that internal experience-based framework that the OT model describes as essential for genuine understanding.
Which leads to another really powerful distinction the essay makes. Human beings create. Machines recycle.
Yeah, and it's not just about, how much they produce, but a fundamental difference in the nature of that production, rooted in this cognitive foundation we've been talking about.
How does the essay break that down?
Well, it breaks it down across 5 key dimensions, really showing the qualitative difference between intelligence built on the OT model versus current AI.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, look at the source of form. Humans generate internal cognitive structures, our understanding, our concepts from our unique, personal, lived experience. It's built from the inside out, shaped by our specific journey.
Right, our individual path through the world.
Machines, though, they extract patterns entirely from external data sets they're fed. Their structure comes from finding regularities in data that already exists, not from internal generation based on personal experience.
That makes sense. It's like we build our own lens to see the world based on everything we've felt and done. AI borrows a lens built from everybody else's data. That's a good way to put it. Next dimension, semantic depth. When humans process information, the meaning is rich. It's contextual. It's imbued with emotion, cultural background, personal history.
Yeah, like the word home. It means something profoundly different to each of us based on our life, our feelings.
Exactly. AI, while it can process surrounding text for context, it lacks that deeper lived semantic depth. It doesn't have personal emotions or a cultural history tied to the word home. It's largely context agnostic in that deep human sense.
So AI knows the statistical probability of sweet appearing in your home in a huge data set.
But it doesn't feel any warmth or nostalgia associated with the word itself.
Got it. Okay, what else?
Then consider the learning process. We talked about the OT triad, right? Sensing leads to symbolizing, leads to abstracting. It's a developmental journey.
Right, building up layers.
Current AI. The essay describes their learning as primarily syntactic. It's focused on predicting the next token in a sequence. It's what they call autoregressive mimicry. Autoregressive mimicry. Just getting better and better at generating sequences that look like human output.
Yeah, but they aren't building that layered understanding from sensory ground truth. They're learning grammar and style patterns incredibly well.
But not the underlying reality those patterns are supposed to describe.
Precisely. Which brings us to the nature of creativity. Humans, we can generate genuinely new semantic categories. We invent entirely new concepts, forge metaphors that bridge unrelated ideas in novel ways, create art that evokes emotions never quite felt before.
And this creativity is linked to our emotional interpretation of reality and our ability to play with symbols tied to lived experience.
That's the argument. Machines, by contrast, primarily recombine and extrapolate from structures they've already encountered in their training data. It's incredibly sophisticated rearrangement, maybe even synthesis.
But not conceptual innovation born of grounded meaning and subjective experience. It's like we can invent completely new colors and the feelings they evoke.
While AI can only create new shades by mixing the colors it was already given.
That's a good analogy. Okay, one more dimension.
Yeah, the last one is the neural system source. A human brain develops what the essay calls a self-organized semantic neural network. Our neural pathways are constantly being shaped and reshaped by every new sensation, emotion, thought, interaction.
It's an organic process, building an internal model of reality rooted in personal experience.
Right. An AI's neural network, while incredibly complex, is externally pre-designed and trained on curated datasets. It lacks that dynamic, self-organizing feedback loop that comes from directly experiencing and emotionally processing the real world.
Wow. Okay, when you lay out those 5 differences like that, it really does force you to rethink what intelligence even means, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
The essay isn't just saying AI is less capable in some ways. It's arguing it's built on an entirely different foundation than human cognition.
One built from patterns and data, the other from meaning rooted in lived experience and symbolic development.
And that leads directly to the essay's core proposal. If we want AI that moves beyond just mimicry towards genuine understanding, we might need to fundamentally rethink its architecture.
Potentially by integrating principles from this OT developmental model. Okay, this is where it gets really exciting, I think.
Yeah, the essay outlines a proposed path toward OT-AI integration. It suggests a new kind of AI architecture inspired by this human developmental model.
So instead of just feeding AI abstract data streams,
the idea is to build systems that develop through stages analogous to the OT triad. They propose 3 potential stages for this future AI design.
Okay, what would stage 1 look like for a machine? Is it even possible?
Well, they call it sensory-motor input mapping. The idea is it isn't just processing pixels or audio files as abstract data points. It's about building systems that can process real-world percepts. Yeah, like sensory inputs, in a way that creates internal representations analogous to human sensory input. Imagine an AI that doesn't just see a label cat attached to an image, but processes the image like a human infant might, registering its form, maybe its potential texture via tactile sensors, perhaps associated sounds, building a primitive, grounded representation of that object in space.
Okay, so giving the AI something like simulated senses, grounding its understanding in some kind of perceived reality, not just data about reality.
Exactly. Building that foundational layer of simulated experience. Then comes stage 2, symbolic coding.
This is where that crucial semantic layer would come in.
Right. It wouldn't just statistically link the symbol cat to the symbol furry. It would aim to encode a relational meaning, linking the symbol cat back to the grounded sensoromotor experience of cat.
Ah, connecting the symbol to the feeling of the cat.
Sort of, yeah. And then linking that symbol to other symbols in a way that reflects real-world relationships. Cat is near mat, cat chases mouse, giving symbols depth by linking them back to that simulated sensory foundation.
Okay, that makes sense. And stage 3.
Abstract concept induction. Based on those grounded sensory inputs and the developing symbolic network, this stage would ideally allow the AI to form its own hierarchical abstract concepts.
Its own concepts. How?
Instead of just being trained on data where certain things are pre-labeled mammals, the AI might induce the concept of mammal itself, based on patterns it detects across its own sensoromotor symbolic representations, creating its own self-generated categories of understanding.
So the goal here isn't just making a better predictor of the next word.
Far from it. The essay really emphasizes that this integration aims to shift machines toward interpretive modeling.
Interpretive modeling. Meaning.
The ambition is for AI to grasp the symbolic dynamics of cognition, how meaning is actually built, connected, and manipulated, rather than just copying the output of human cognition, like language or images or code.
It's about building a system that understands meaning from within, based on simulated experience and symbolic development.
That's the idea. A profound shift, potentially.
Yeah, it really is. So, okay, pulling back for the final thoughts on this deep dive. The core argument from this essay is powerful and, frankly, a little unsettling.
How so?
Well, the implication is that without incorporating a framework like Odum-Tilley theory, something that models the messy, embodied, developmental way human intelligence and meaning are actually built, current AI, despite all its brilliance, remains fundamentally cognitively blind.
Cognitively blind, seeing patterns everywhere but not grasping purpose, replicating form but not understanding function.
Exactly. But the flip side, the promise, is that by deliberately embedding a model of how knowledge progresses from sensing to symbolizing to abstracting,
an AI could potentially cross a truly critical threshold.
moving from machine learning, which is what we have now, to something closer to machine understanding.
From artificial mimicry to perhaps artificial meaning. That's the potential payoff as outlined in this essay.
And this leaves us, and you listening, with a really big question to ponder, I think.
Which is,
If we truly want artificial intelligence that understands the world, that communicates with us with genuine meaning, this essay suggests we might need to design it to learn not just from the digital traces of human activity, all that data,
but from something analogous to lived experience and the developmental building blocks of symbolic meaning, mirroring how human intelligence actually develops.
Yeah. What does that imply about how we interact with the incredibly capable, yet maybe fundamentally different AI systems we use today?
And what should our expectations really be for the future of AI if the path to genuine understanding requires maybe rebuilding the foundation entirely?
Definitely something to think about. That's been our deep dive for today.